Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for participating in ABG's Investor Day. My name is Benjamin Silverstone, and I'm equity analyst here at ABG. I now have the pleasure of presenting the next interesting company, Össur, which will be represented by the current CFO and to-be CEO, Sven Solversen. Sven, thank you very much for being here today, and the word is all yours.
Thank you, Benjamin, and thanks to all of you who are listening in. It's good to be here with you today. I will go through a short presentation on Össur, explain a bit the background, what we do, where we compete, and what our focus areas are, and then transition to more, let's say, forward-looking perspectives. So this should take 15-20 minutes, and then we can take some questions at the end. If you go to the next slide, please. Össur is today a mid-sized global medical device company, and we compete in two sub-segments of the broader orthopedic market, and I'll explain those in more detail on the following slides. We have operations in 35 countries. Actually, here in 2021, we added 7 countries to the list, and we have about 4,000 employees across the globe, but more concentrated, let's say, in the more developed, more well-funded healthcare markets of the world. Össur is a technology company. We invest about $30 million every year in research and development. We have around 2,000 patents that have something to do with how we fit devices and solve mobility problems, and fit devices to the external body. That's important to mention, that we don't do anything that is invasive as such. We only have externally fitted devices. The company has grown every year except for the COVID year. Every year since the company was listed in '99, we've had solid organic growth on top of acquired growth, and the operating EBITDA margin for 2021 was around 21%, which is similar as pre-COVID levels. Ultimately, we're listed on the Nasdaq stock exchange in Copenhagen, and our main shareholder is the Demand Invest Foundation that has been invested in Össur since 2004. Okay, this was the highlights. If you go to the next slide, please. If we then dive into the two segments that we compete in a little bit more detail, starting with prosthetics. Here we have a complete offering and we basically offer and manufacture everything that is needed to build a fully functioning prosthetic leg and arm for individuals who have lost an arm below elbow, or individuals who have lost a foot below or above knee. Most amputations are in the lower extremity or the below waist. That's simply because most amputations are because of let's say diabetes that leads to vascular complications in the lower part of the body that ultimately leads to amputations. That is the vast majority of all amputations. So probably 90% of the market is in lower extremity prosthetics. We segment our solutions by mechanical solutions and bionic solutions. Mechanical solutions are products that don't have any electronics or any sensors to help the user walk more normally, while the bionics are exactly that. The bionics are intelligent products that sense the environment, sense whether the user is walking up or down a slope, up or down stairs, and provide assistance such that when you see a person using a bionic product, they will come very close to walking like those of us that have 2 normal legs. So this is what we are doing on the prosthetic side. Bracing and support, that is let's say a market where we have products that serve or that are focused on a broad range of indications, everything from minor ligament pain to minor muscle pain to more complex post-operative solutions, or even chronic solutions like knee osteoarthritis. So this is a pretty broad product category, and we have quite a complete product offering in bracing and support, and this business is synergistic also with the prosthetics business, and I'll explain that a little bit better later, as our main sort of go-to-market or sales channel are so-called orthopedic and prosthetic facilities that typically see both amputees and individuals who have a demand for some sort of bracing solution. Now, what is also important to mention here is that we are operating in the reimbursed world, as in most of our products, or virtually all of our products in our main mature or developed markets are reimbursed by some sort of reimbursement system, either public or private. If we go to the next slide, please, a little bit around our geographic footprint. Most of our business, probably around 85-ish%, is in, like I said in the beginning, in well-funded, developed healthcare markets. It is US, Canada, UK, France, Benelux, Germany, Scandi countries. This is the vast majority of our business. We have a growing business, and we let's say emerging market is around 10% of our business. That's not what you see in this slide. APAC also includes Japan, Australia, which we don't consider to be emerging. But if we pull the real emerging markets out from these three geographical areas you see on the slide here, that accounts for about 10% of our sales, and it's growing. That is the part of our business where we see the highest organic growth rates year over year. Just a little bit about the footprint. In addition, we are headquartered here in Iceland. Össur is originally an Icelandic company. We were founded here in Reykjavik 50 years ago. Today we have some corporate functions here in Iceland, and a fair amount of manufacturing of the high-end, high-tech, low-volume prosthetics, and do most of the prosthetics R&D here as well. In the US, we have some R&D for bracing, and then in Mexico we have a large manufacturing entity, and then we also do some manufacturing or outsource manufacturing to vendors in China and Taiwan for the more simple bracing products. If you go to the next slide, please, just a little bit more details on these two segments, like structural details and a little bit about the growth dynamics, starting with prosthetics, which is a sort of a niche market in many ways. It is, we estimate, around $1.4 billion. It's fairly well consolidated. Össur has around 23-24% share, while Ottobock, a private company in Germany, has around, we estimate, 35-ish%. And then you have smaller companies that are maybe in fewer markets that are trailing after Össur and Ottobock. But in most markets you will have a presence from Össur and Ottobock. Now, what drives growth in prosthetics, the easiest way to think about that is that we are serving an amputee population that is living out there and constantly need to maintain their prosthetic solutions and need to come in for maintenance, upgrades, renewals, etc. And this amputee population, at least in the developed markets, is growing at a low sort of single-digit rate. But what drives the value growth in the industry is that you have proportionately more individuals having access to higher technology or better products. And I'm going to come back to this point a little later. This is very, very central to the investment case. And And ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, also we sell our products principally through orthopedic and prosthetic clinics, which are in most instances located outside of the hospital setting and are usually small service workshops where that serve amputees. The bracing market is a larger market in value terms. It's a more fragmented market. Össur is there among a group of companies that are sort of considered to be sort of second in market share after DJO Global, which is a US company that has about 20% share. The growth rates are lower than in prosthetics, and growth is primarily driven. These are volume. It's a volume growth. The average user of a bracing product is typically an elderly person. So as we all get older, on average, there's more demand for bracing, as well as demand for more active lifestyle, and also the prevalence of complications like osteoarthritis drive demand for knee bracing. The clinic, or let's say the route to market here is also orthopedic and prosthetic clinics, which is our same primary sales channel like on the prosthetic side. All right, if we then sort of shift gear and move to sort of more forward-looking. If you go to the next slide, please. Our main strategic themes are growth, efficiency, and innovation. This is we sort of rally the organization behind these key themes and structure our initiatives along these lines. Just starting with on the innovation side, which is obviously a growth strategy in itself. We invest in innovation to drive growth. And if you go to the next slide, please, you see what we refer to as the technology trade-off. And I've already touched on this earlier. The growth in prosthetics is a lot around moving more amputees towards the upper right corner here, from mechanical solutions to bionic solutions. And this is our main task, is to convince payers that it's a good investment to pay for these devices, like the bionics, and there is very solid health economic evidence around bionics that supports let's say the notion that the healthcare systems of the world, they should pay for these products, because most of the cost for the healthcare system is when amputees, which are typically elderly people, fall and injure themselves and are hospitalized. And there's very clear data that shows that when people use bionics that sense the environment, that help the user walk more normally, people or users are much less likely to fall and injure themselves. And also they're much less likely to develop other problems that arise as a result of lack of mobility if you're using poor quality prosthetics. So the investment case for bionics is very clear. And today bionics account for, here in Q4, accounted for around 23% of the value in our product segment in prosthetics. So we're up by about 10 percentage points over the last 10 years. So this is a big, let's say, this has been a big growth driver for us historically, and will continue to be, as the penetration of bionics among the amputee population still remains very low. Then we have also here a reference to mind-controlled prosthetics, which is even the next step in technology development, which is around giving users more intuitive control of their prosthesis. We are currently going through an FDA approval process for sensors that we have, where we are working with a third-party company that has developed these sensors that we implant into remaining muscle tissue that then sort of communicates with the prosthesis. and enables more intuitive control. So this is something which is a bit further out there in the future in terms of economic impact, but certainly the future for amputees to have more intuitive control of their prosthetic limbs. Now I need to speed up. I can see on the timing. If we can go to the next slide, please. Just a few other key themes when it comes to growth. We've talked about innovation, technology, trade-up. We are also increasingly moving from just selling medical devices or components to our O&P clinical customers to also offering them different types of value-add services like reimbursement advice, and also very, very importantly, and that goes to the bottom point here, expanding in the value chain, offering our clinical customers to outsource certain parts of the customization process that is currently sort of done in the clinics today, to outsourcing this to Össur, such that we deliver complete solutions to our clinics that serve the end users. And then a big part of the investment case here is also around emerging market access and geographic expansion. I mentioned in the beginning that we generate a small part of our business in emerging markets, but that's where the majority of amputees resides. And we are making investments into establishing presence in new markets, and are actively developing business models that are more applicable in markets where there's less infrastructure and less established reimbursement and payment systems. And then ultimately acquisitions. We have been acquisitive historically, and are currently and will continue to screen for targets that strengthen our business in the areas of acquiring companies, clinics that are servicing the users of our products. We are also actively screening for products that are complementary to our product offering, and then ultimately also screening for opportunities for market access and establishing a presence in markets where we currently are not present. If you go to the next slide, please. Just here you have just a little bit of numbers. Pre-COVID, growing mid-single digit organic, double digit including acquisitions. Operating margins, gradual increase year over year, fueled by economies of scale, and the prosthetics business growing faster than the bracing business, which drives positive margin development for us. And then ultimately we used the strong free cash flow both to buy strong companies that strengthen our overall business, and then we return capital to our shareholders now only in the form of share buybacks. Just briefly on the next slide, you see the historical growth development. If you go to the next slide, please. Just a few more numbers on cash conversion, capital structure, and return of capital to our shareholders. And then finally, on the final slide, important for me to mention also our sustainability efforts. Our biggest contribution is obviously that we create products that solve mobility problems. That's our purpose. That's why that's what we do. That's why we're here for. That's the biggest impact we have on our let's say on our environment and our sort of constituents. But then we also have an ambitious plan in other areas to be as good of a citizen as possible. And we're carbon neutral here in 2021. We are both actively pursuing strategies to reduce our footprint, but then we buy let's say offsets for what we do for our carbon footprint to sort of mitigate the impact on our overall environment. I think that's the 20-minute mark, Benjamin.
Thank you, Sven, for the very thorough presentation. It's much appreciated. Just for the people out here who are new to the case, could you possibly just give an indication or an idea of how the timeline is for a new patient joining Össur for the first time, and how much of your revenue is occurring revenue from existing patients?
Yes.
Just to give an idea of that split.
Very good question, and let's say the two segments that we compete in are a bit different, and what drives, let's say, the ultimate demand. Starting with bracing, which is mainly driven by sort of one-time incidents. There's an injury of some sort, which drives a need for a bracing product. That is the majority of the bracing business. Then you have the chronic, which is the slidgigt or osteoarthritis knee bracing, where we have a growing group of individuals that uses bracing to alleviate pain instead of doing knee replacement surgeries. So that's a little bit on the bracing side. On the prosthetic side, if an amputation will typically be performed in a hospital setting by an orthopedic surgeon, then once the patient is then ambulatory, they will be referred to an orthopedic and prosthetic clinic, which we consider to be like our main customers. In this clinic, the individual will be met by a prosthetist who will be, let's say, very influential in terms of what products and what solution is ultimately created for this individual, because the prosthetist will be knowledgeable about the payment mechanisms that are relevant in each and every jurisdiction, and will also advise the user on what the reimbursement will cover. So we have a lot of effort towards this prosthetist to convince him about the benefits of our technology. So this individual will then get a prosthetic solution which will need to be maintained throughout the lifetime of this individual. And we estimate that about 80% of our products in prosthetics are used for maintaining existing amputees and existing prosthetic solutions that are out there. So this is a very important element of the prosthetics business. And again, like I said earlier, it's about it's all about servicing the existing amputee population with better technology, better products that increases their quality of life.
Thank you very much, Sven. Just one last question for the last minute we have here. You're obviously now 3 months into the year. There's been a lot of turmoil, both from COVID, Ukraine, Russia, a lot of things that are impacting a lot of businesses. Are you just able to give a quick indication of which factors have been on the radar at Össur during the last couple of months?
Yes, I mean, we went into 22 optimistic that we would have COVID behind us after largely after the first few months of the year, and so far that seems to be a fair assumption. Obviously, the new crisis on the horizon is deeply worrying to us and as other companies, and I think all of us, our direct exposure to the conflict is minimal as such. We do have some employees in Ukraine, which we are taking as good care of as we possibly can. We have some product sales to Russia, which are currently on hold, and then we have some supply chain implications as well, which are not material and we've very much manageable. But it's more the bigger picture uncertainty that this conflict has brought, which we need to just monitor on a day-to-day basis. But again, we sort of the COVID impact has been significant for us, but we feel that we are gradually transitioning into a more positive environment. Absolutely. You're on mute, Benjamin.
Thank you, Sven. Unfortunately, due to the time, we will have to conclude the presentation here. But thank you very much again for being here today, and thank you to everybody who listened in as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Take care.
Have a good day.
Cheers. Bye bye. You too. Bye.